Hello, it's me, Miss Carol. How's it going? Um, Today we're going to look at the Boston Tea Party and the Intolerable Acts and some of the other exciting stuff that happened during this time period. This would be part three of the period three um, PowerPoint. Sorry, I'm in a different room, so I'm not at my usual desk. Anyway, let's start with the Boston Tea Party. Probably every one of you have at least heard of the Boston Tea Party or know what the Boston Tea Party is all about, but you might not understand all of the ins and outs of it. Um, because of the stuff that we talked about in our last lecture, the tightening of the reins by the British Parliament and so on, things are getting very contentious in the colonies. Colonists continue to refuse to buy English tea because of a tax that's been put on it. Parliament's looking to help out the British East India Company, and so they passed what's called the Tea Act of 1773. This made the price of that company's tea cheaper than actual tea that was being smuggled in from elsewhere. So they're making it so cheap in order to help increase the profits, but the colonists still aren't buying it because they're still kind of protesting and boycotting. Colonists refuse to buy the cheaper tea. When a shipment of tea from the British East Indian Tea Company comes into the harbor, nobody shows up to buy it. Later on that evening, a group of Bostonians dress up as Indians. They board a ship and they dump 342 chests of tea in the harbor. The colonial reaction to the Tea Party was mixed. Some people felt that it was a justifiable defense of liberty, that it was an act of protest, that it was inevitable that something like this was going to happen, and that the colonists that did it were in the right. However, the other side of the coin, there were people living in the colonies, and this is not just loyalists, people that were loyal to the British Parliament or government, but people that just thought, okay, this is a little too radical. You're destroying property, and we don't stand for that. Like, we want to boycott, but we don't want to wreck things, ruin things. So it was a pretty mixed outcome to the Boston Tea Party. Either way you looked at it, though, the colonists did make a statement, and therefore now the ball is really rolling, headed towards something big. As a result of the Boston Tea Party, the British government parliament passes a series of regulations and acts that really light, as it says here, light the fire that eventually makes people push towards engaging in a revolution. So when news of the Boston Tea Party makes it to England, this makes the king and the parliament very mad. To retaliate, the British government passed a series of serious acts that eventually would ignite the fire that would eventually have people push for a revolution. The Intolerable Acts, one of the Intolerable Acts, the Coercive Act, 1774. This is directed mainly at punishing the people of Boston and Massachusetts for bringing dissidents under control, meaning those rebellious people, bringing them to tightening the reins and trying to take control of the situation. Within the coercive acts, we have the Port Act. And essentially what the Port Act does is close the port of Boston. This is a huge deal because Boston runs through this port. All the importing, all the exporting happens here. Millions of dollars are going through this port at any given time. It's like the hub, the center of action in Boston. So the closing of the port, prohibiting trade in and out of the harbor, until all the tea that was destroyed is paid for. So this is very significant. It's really going to put a dent and a damper on the business in Boston. Another coercive act is that the Massachusetts Government Act is passed. This reduces the power of the Massachusetts legislature and increases the power of the royal governor. So limiting local control and ramping up the royal control. So making the control and the government, the self-government that the colonists had been using for years and years and years, now that's going to be extremely limited. And now the royal governor is going to set up, and therefore you're going to start to see more British, pro-British situations happening. A third coercive act, the Administration of Justice Act. This allowed royal officials accused of crimes to be tried in Great Britain instead of in the colonies. So obviously, if you're going to your home turf to be tried for something that you've done, you have a better chance of not being accused. And if you've done something here in the colonies, and you stand trial, the likelihood of being accused of something is greater. So these people are kind of getting a get out of jail free card. And they enable British troops to be quartered in private homes, and this applied to all colonies. It's an extension of the Quartering Act. In 1774, as part of the Intolerable Acts, the Quebec Act is passed. And this is passed to help organize the Canadian lands gained from France. The plan is widely accepted by French Canadians, but resented, obviously, by the 13 colonies. Also, this really annoys the colonists because with the French Canadians essentially being the majority population in this area, they are going to establish Roman Catholicism, or the Catholic religion, as the official religion of Quebec. And the rest of the 13 colonies are some form of Protestant Baptist, and they really dislike the Catholics. If you remember, the Catholics were highly persecuted, even here in the colonies. So that's just an extra little weaseling by the British government. They knew that that would happen. The Quebec Act allowed to set up a government without representative assembly. It extended Quebec's boundary to the Ohio River, and essentially colonists viewed this as a direct attack on the American colonies because it took away lands that they claimed along the Ohio River Valley. So the Intolerable Acts, the Coercive Acts, the Boston Tea Party really, really, really light this fire of they're doing something to us and we need to react. Some people are already saying we need to break free, we need to be our own entity. Some people are just annoyed, they just want it to go back to the way it used to be. So let's see what happens next. So we're going to jump right into the American Revolution and the Confederation. Actually, I think I'll stop on this one and we'll start a brand new one for next time. Okay, see ya.